5, 4, 2.
Hey, it's me.
And that's when I joined the circus.
That's when Bannon Rudis joined the circus, and he's here with Adam Tierney. I'm Jonathan Holmes.
Hello.
I am a writer for Nintendo Force magazine, a print magazine that carries forward the spirit, the heart of Nintendo Power, which I grew up with. I used to read Nintendo Power back when I was playing a video game called River City Ransom that was so hard and so confusing, but so charming and so inviting. It always made me feel like I had a chance, and then I would get brutally beat down because you can go anywhere in the game from the start, ending up in back alleys and areas where you can get really badly hurt. It's an RPG beat 'em up, and boy, is it good. And I've always wanted it to evolve and continue to keep up with the times. One time it did when somebody made a game called River City Ransom Underground, and that was good.
Oh,
that was on
Brandon Rudis.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good old Rudis.
Yeah,
He is a heck of a game maker. But it was stuck on the personal computer, and there were things about it that made it hard to port, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I find out Bannon Rudis, people are going to think that's your real name now, is working at WayForward, and then they put out a River City game that's going to be on all the systems starting today, I heard.
Yep.
Is that all true?
It is on the systems right now.
That is such good news. And as much as I loved River City Ransom Underground, what River City Girls has brought is none of that, like me ending up in the wrong place and getting beat up by strangers. It is a streamlined, slick, yet authentic, handmade passion project that all the same has all the glitz and gloss of a big budget production. How did you do it?
Just lots of glitz and gloss.
Yeah.
Some would say pizzazz and gusto in there.
Wow, you added some spunk, some chutzpah.
Yep.
You put it on Moxie, though. We did run out of time for Moxie.
No, we considered that got cut.
Yeah.
So you're Adam Tierney and Bannon Rudis. Adam, I've talked to you before.
Yeah.
You've made a ton of video games. You made a Centipede game where you worked with Muriel Cartwright, who later became the animation director on Skullgirls and Indivisible. You've worked on Alien. Which one was yours? Infestation?
Yep.
Not Isolation. I mix up my Infestations and Isolation. So you worked on that. I think, did Konjak work with you on that? Did you do some of the animation?
A little bit. Yeah, he did. I think he did the Alien animations. We did Batman, we did Flash, we did Barbie. Of course, we did Shrek, Ogres, and Dronkies. Everybody usually associates me with that.
You were just telling me you did a Voltron Puzzle and Dragons. We did
the Voltron Puzzle and Dragons too. So yeah, lots of fun stuff.
So you have so much experience, so much work with IP, and as I know you, one of your great strengths is communication and relationships, and that comes across in both your work on the games, because you write passionate, cute, likable dialogue that sums up a character quickly, but at the same time isn't shallow. And then you find out there's more about them. And you've done that on Centipede, like you passionately wrote a script for a Centipede game and did all this world building and stuff. I wish it got better appreciated. I think people assumed, well, it's just Centipede, it's not going to have a great story. And there it was. It was great. And also in your ability to put a team together and get people from all over the world to communicate and work together. We were talking a little bit before the show about River City Girls and how it looks like the art is by just one person, because the backgrounds and the character animation, the worlds and the characters just feel like they're made out of the same stuff. It feels like it's the same style. But you actually had 5 or 6 different artists on this, or more than that?
Yeah, no, I mean, when you're adding up everybody, it's in the dozens at least. That was kind of an interesting one, because a lot of WayForward pixel art games look of a very similar style. So if you look at, Contra 4, you can tell that's the same people as Alien Infestation, and that's the same people as Shantae Risky's Revenge. Like, we use a lot of the same artists. But this one, I really wanted to set a completely different tone. So we tried to get brand new leads we had not worked with before. So Hunter Russell on Twitter, her handle is Big Jerk. She did the character designs, and she's got this really unique style where she does not use like dithering or outlines. It's all just flat colors. and her stuff is so dynamic. And then we worked with Valeria, who goes by Wanila on Twitter, and she does backgrounds, and it's almost the same thing. It's just these big swashes of colors. So yeah, we were definitely looking for artists that had kind of a similar style to each other, but at the same time, we wanted something that felt new and exciting, and was also just kind of challenging the team to not fall into like the same old routines and the same old styles that we use game to game. We wanted this to have its own identity.
We were very picky about the artists too. Like each of them had to elevate the next artist. We couldn't settle on an artist. It was like this person can keep up with this other artist. So it was like the elite of these pixel artists all working together.
Yeah, and actually, like a lot of the returning staffers tended to be kind of in the more minor roles. So character designer, illustrator, pixel artist for characters, pixel artist for backgrounds, animator, all these people, all these roles were usually the first time they ever worked with WayForward.
Wow. And for some of them, was it their first professional work in games, period?
Yep. Our main animator, the pixel animator, this is his first job he's ever had. We found him.
Yeah.
He's working freelance, and we're like, let's get him.
Yeah.
We got him over in-house now, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of that stuff, Ben and you and I have talked about animation before. There's so much to animation people don't necessarily understand. It's not just a matter of making sure you have enough frames per second in order for it to be fluid. It's about deciding to put a lot of frames here in order to build up and then like cut down on the amount of frames so the movement is fast and has impact. Street Fighter.
Still making that work in a game sensibility. Like you can't just throw a limb out there. It has to be like, this is hitting high, this is hitting low. The hitbox is going to be here. That stuff is super important.
And then even more complicated on this because it's a combo game. So they're doing what are the attacks, what are the follow-through frames, what are the interrupt frames, and then also where can I break out, where can I combo this into launching the character up or launching them back. And it's so precise because the character is flung into the air for only a few seconds. And so these guys are making sure, Bannon and Kay, that, okay, if I do that, then I perform, the dab attack or whatever. There's enough frames to get back and hit that character again the second time. It's really, really precise.
Good grief. So
Jonathan, language.
Sorry. The trust you must have had in these relative strangers, like for all you know, they're going to have huge personality problems or just totally drop the ball or suddenly have some issue that causes their work to suffer. You had to put a lot of trust in them and also in yourselves that you would be able to do this. Adam, as I know you, you are incredibly optimistic and enthusiastic. Like you have a lot of energy, but it's a relaxed energy. Like, yeah, we're just going to end up making a cartoon. We're just going to make a movie. We're going to make another video game. Whereas Bannon, we haven't talked about this. You don't know that I think this about you. But you're about to find out. You have like a perfectionistic passion. And it sometimes seems to be driven by a certain anxiety, but it's also like a determination. Like when I was looking at the punch animations, I was like, that's a Bannon punch. It's just knocked right into the wall. Like, you will get stuff done. I've seen videos of you on Twitter just like beating the crap out of a punching bag and like.
I had to act out a lot of these attacks. If you look at Misako's haymaker, that's definitely me trying to figure out how sloppy Misako is at throwing punches.
So those were for reference, some of those.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, that's the thing about animation. A punch isn't just an arm coming out. Like Kay understood that so well. Like it isn't just you put an arm out and it comes back in. This is a punch comes from your entire body generating this energy. And that reads so well in animation. And it reads to the player going like, they threw their whole body into this punch.
And I think that's part of the reason why people, as they play at the combat, I know, I've been playing the game now for a year and a half. Why it's still fun to play is because of the personality and the comedy in those attacks. Because even modern brawlers, you look at most of what they've done and it's still, all right, well, this is a right cross and this is a jab, but it's still, they might have a little bit of like a swagger to it, but it's still very functional. These guys, what Bannon and Kay came up with for the Misako and Kyoko animations reminds me a lot more of what Sakurai is doing with Smash Brothers, where it's like, okay, well, this is the, forward heavy or the upward quick or whatever, but that's the only thing they take literally. Like these girls are doing crazy stuff. They're doing, lunging dodgeball saves and doing like Scrooge McDuck style bounces. Like the stuff they're doing is just super wacky, but it's functionally aligns with those. But I love the fact that so few of the attacks in the game are just standard brawler attacks.
Right, which makes sense for the characters as you wrote them, because they don't seem like the kind of high school students who would be sitting around practicing traditional attacks. They're completely atraditional people. Misako being the grouchy, serious. I wouldn't call her selfish, but she's certainly self-directed. She knows what she wants. She wants her boyfriend, and she's going to get it. Whereas Kyoko is riding the wave and happy wherever she goes. Whether she's getting in a fist fight with a stranger, she somehow makes it fun and silly. So you have that balance of light and dark between those two.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it, like light and dark. That was kind of one of the seeds of this. Even before this was a Kunio-kun game, I like doing types of games, and I like doing types of personalities. And so for years, I've wanted to do that trope, that kind of style of like the odd couple of like the angry brunette and the peppier, blonde or redhead, and it fit in with this, these characters. But that sort of like dueling personalities where they play off each other and reinforcing those kind of personas, but then also finding depth to it. So, for example, Kyoko's peppier, but then we made it so that when Kyoko gets mad, she gets far more aggressive than Misako ever was. So there's all these like little minutia things.
She's bottling it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like how so many teenagers are when they're trying to figure out their emotions. And one of the underlying themes of the story of the game, I don't want to spoil it, but these characters don't quite understand their relationships yet. Their relationships with each other seems pretty solid, but their relationships with everybody else.
It's kind of a running thing throughout the whole game. I mean, if you look at like what Masuzu talks about being the first boss, or Yamada and the second boss, and their relationships with Noise and the flashbacks, a lot of it is just like, hey, we used to be friends. Hey, we're not friends. Hey, I liked you. Hey, you didn't like me. It's a lot of just kind of that teenagery kind of like, going in and out of friendships, in and out of relationships. And it's fun. It's just that when they do it, they then get into these massive, fist fights as opposed to just like ignoring each other.
Yeah, right. Like you might fight with somebody in high school, but it doesn't end with somebody launching you into the air and doing a power bomb. But it does in this world.
But yeah, emotionally it could, but physically, which brings me to Scott Pilgrim. What's it been like to make a River City game in the shadow of, I'm not sure if they were tribute yet, but they went off to be tributed right afterwards. Ubisoft made a Scott Pilgrim game. I actually got to talk to the director of that on the press tour for Destructoid, who was writing there, and told him how awesome the game was. He was like, what about the movie? I was like, it was good too, but the game is so good. So that game left a huge impression on people, and then it disappeared, which causes people to still talk about it.
Yeah.
What's it been like to make a River City game in the shadow of that, knowing that River City, of course, came first and influenced the Scott Pilgrim game, but River City is like 30 years ago and it's never been as high profile. So,
I mean, like for me, I was a fan of that game, and a lot of our friends worked on it. Paul Robertson did most of the design work and a lot of the animation. Mario Cartwright did a lot on it. A lot of the Indivisible Lab Zero guys. So we kind of knew it from that. It didn't really, for my portion of this game, it didn't really factor into it that much. I see a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, this is such a, perfect, follow-up to Scott Pilgrim, or if you guys are doing the Scott Pilgrim homage. But I'm sure there's some of that subconsciously, just because it was a game that I played, and I'm sure you played it as well. But I think it's more just that my writing is super goofy and goofball and wacky and very VO-driven and character-driven. And then the combat that Bannon and Kay did was very comedic, and we wanted a very immersive world where it's not just a tile set everywhere you're going is like a functional, here's this shopping area and that area. So I think it's just kind of, we probably got there via the same kind of means that Scott Pilgrim did, but it wasn't, for me, it was mostly kind of looking at River City Ransom, Underground, the Super Famicom game, and Double Dragon were like the big influences on our game.
Scott Pilgrim does not factor into the gameplay or fighting in the slightest. For me,
I didn't think so. I should have framed it better.
No,
when people play your game, I'm wondering if they're like, this reminds me of Scott Pilgrim, as opposed to like, this reminds me of the original River City Ransom, and whether you've had to deal with that comparison. I mean, I guess you're dealing with it now.
It is something that gets brought up a lot. Like, it is, if that reminds them of Scott Pilgrim and that brings fond memories, more power to them. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Other than that, it is a linear move from left to right. This is still, you're going to explore the city. You're going to go to shops. Like it was to me, this is a homage to River City Ransom.
Yeah.
And that kind of play style of you're going to level up, you're going to get moves, you're going to get items. Like you want to explore this vast city.
Yeah. Now we could talk about the DNA a little bit. So yeah, definitely looking at River City Ransom, which was the third game in the series, but kind of the most famous old one here. Looking at what Bannon did on Underground, and then we talked about it in interviews a little bit, but this is the Super Famicom game. And if you look, you can actually see old school versions of Misako and Kyoko. This was the first game in which they were playable. It was only released in Japan, and so the seed of this game was, I wasn't aware of that game until like 3 or 4 years ago, and another director here, James, showed it to me, and I just saw these cute, scrawny girls just curb stomping guys and doing crazy grabs and throws, and it was just so charming that I said, oh, we have got to go after this. And luckily, kind of as I've been a director here, I also was transitioning into, now I do the biz dev stuff. So as we're pursuing brands, I'm the one now that's knocking on the doors in Japan and the US and saying, hey, can we do this game? Hey, can we do this game? Can we license this? So this is one of the first things that we pursued when I got in that role. And ARC owned it, ARC System Works in Japan, and they were just like super into the idea. So yeah, we went after this one. That was like a really big influence as far as the characters. And then I know Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2, like the way that they handle grabs and throws and punches and stuff, that's always had a good crossover with the River City games, and that kind of factored in as well. But I remember that one of the things, because when we first started talking about the combat, me and Bannon at the beginning of like formal production on this, was wanting to do something where it was deep, but it wasn't frustrating. So if a player wants to pull off a special move, they can pull off a special move. And, I think a lot of fighting games are going that way. If you look at Dragon Ball Fighter Z by ARC, it's really crazy attacks, but they're all just like single press direction plus a button. Like they're the simplest combos. Same thing with the Smash Brothers games forever. It's never deeper usually than like one direction and a button press. So that's something we decided early on, is we wanted it to be, get the most out of all those combinations, but not make it so that a more novice gamer could only pull off half the moves, because we knew that with the characters, with the girls, with their personalities, we were going to be diving into a much broader audience with this. So we wanted to do something that even casual gamers could really have fun kicking ass at.
Sure. It reminded me a little bit of Batman Brave and the Bold, which I've been playing with my 4-year-old on the Wii. He loves it. He just shakes around.
Oh, cool.
But it's more complicated than River City, actually. The punch and then roll, and you got to use every button on both of you.
Under the hood, Batman Brave and the Bold, when we did that one, is just a love letter to Double Dragon 2. So all of the grabs and throws and combos, and then it had very, very floaty characters. So like lots of air juggling and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. And not as much. They got a good weight to them in River City Girls. But Bannon.
Yes.
Bannon. There he is. That's fun. You started working on River City Ransom Underground as your first game project forever. How long was that? Like 7 years ago now? 8?
7 from the inception of it. Yeah, like me trying to learn how to do pixel art and how to even make a game. I mean, it just started off as like a love letter to my friends. That's why all the characters are based on friends and family. But then, when that was like wrapping up, they just hired me, and I sat at a desk for like a week trying to figure out why I'm even at this company until they assigned me something.
And we were actually, I think we were pursuing this brand before you got hired, but it takes a long time to get things going. So like it's not atypical for a WayForward game to be in discussions and brainstorming and trying to get it greenlit and going back and forth with the publisher for sometimes up to a year before we actually kick off production. And that was the case on this one. Wow.
So you knew Bannon had the kind of experience with the brand that would be applicable to this game. So I assume you put him on it at some point pretty quickly. But
the Mummy Demastered was the first thing that I did. So
that's right.
Yeah. So Shadow, Austin, Ivan Smith, and then I did mainly just the animation on there. I would like give little gameplay. Maybe we should do this for gameplay. But other than that, I was pretty much there to shadow him and just do pixel animation.
Yeah,
Right.
this was very similar. So what WayForward does and what Bannon did on this is we've got this nice system of basically bringing people into assistant director roles and director roles. And that was me on Sigma Star Saga on GBA way back when, working under Matt Bozon, where it's like, hey, let me try you with this, and why don't you own this section, and why don't you give this a test? And so River City Girls, it really is just, if you take the two of us and press us uncomfortably together and put us in a blender or something, because it's got, I focus mostly on the story and the characters and kind of the art direction. Bandit did most of the combat and the boss battles and enemies, and it really just does have our kind of mutual DNA all over it. That just sounds terrible, but but it was really interesting. So there were parts that where we completely sort of like did it ourselves. Like I always write most of the dialogue myself, although we co-plotted it, and then Bandit did most of the combat stuff. But then other things we collaborated on, which was like developing the world. So that was a big haul on this game, was we weren't able to piggyback off of anything else previously, like the last couple of River City games did, because we were doing a new art style. So we had to do everything from scratch, and every location, every scene, every animation. So that was one of the most fun parts, I think, was the two of us getting together and figuring out what's the plot, where are we going, but also like, hey, we should put a mall here, and what should be in the mall, and hey, there should be a shopping area over here, and what if it's a kind of like a seaside area over here, and what kind of scenes would they have there? Like just figuring out the world and making it feel not like levels, but like a really livable River City, like an actual place, and think like, oh yeah, like almost anything you could think of would be there. That was one of the most fun kind of collaboration points.
Yeah, I didn't want every level to be a flat just arena.
Yeah.
Like I wanted there to be things that, like, if you're going to have a jump button and jump mechanics, I want people to jump on things.
And the third boss, Bannon gave me a hint on this when I was not beating it. I was sitting in the restroom resting on my iPhone, and I was telling Bannon I can't beat this boss. He's like, why don't you try wall jumping? Son of a God, you're right, Bannon. Why didn't I figure that out myself?
This is kind of me growing up on Metal Gear games. There's always another way to beat these bosses. So I don't know if you even did the thing with Masuzo in the first level with the pillars.
I definitely didn't, but now I have reason to, and I wanted to do a new game plus anyway. So that's something.
There's a reason why you can wall jump, and there's pillars, and she runs at you. What would happen if she hit one of those pillars?
I did figure out the Abobo trick eventually, because Abobo beat me even worse than the magical fashion designer. But Abobo was completely murdering me until I figured out, don't try to do combos, because he'll start blocking after like 2 or 3 hits. And then, one of the most fun things about this game is that these characters who look physically weak can actually pick up park benches and bicycles and stuff. Maybe they can also pick up giant rocks, and then after that, figure it out. So better than, in my opinion, most of the other River City games, the bosses actually teach you mechanics and encourage you to use mechanics that is more of in a Platinum Games vein than a lot of traditional beat 'em ups, which is just like avoid the attack and then get your combo in. You actually needed to.
I think a lot of what was kind of fun is we did really early visual development of the main characters, and also even VO casting. So before we even started like the functionality of the boss battles, we knew what Abobo looked like, we knew what he sounded like, we knew what his personality was. And so you see a lot of these things folded into the boss battles, like especially with the noise battle, where it's all very contextual to who she is, what her personality is, the cinematic that just happened before. And it has this really nice kind of depth to the contextual attacks, more so than I think you'd see in like a typical brawler game, which I really like.
Sure.
I apologize to the team for making them make that noise fight.
Was that your idea, that noise fight, Bannon? Because I know your style, Bannon, mostly from Underground, and a lot of the bosses there's like an Akira Tetsuo themed boss or influenced boss. There's a lot of bosses that show your love of the original River City games. You brought them back in a lot of ways, and things that just speak to your attitude towards life and getting through life. When I play Underground, I feel like this has been in like moving to LA and like getting through the streets. Like this is not an easy life, you guys. This was been
having a team of like actual like having an actual like team. We're doing this full time and like getting to explore these wackier, weirder ideas that we can do and move forward.
Sure.
Instead of just like a team of like 3 people trying to do this.
Right.
It's like we can explore this stuff. And it can get weird because the game is a weird, goofy, like sequel, spinoff, reboot, whatever.
We had
you want to
a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom from Arc, and yeah, I think that's one of the things that I thought Bannon and Kay did really well with the bosses is they're not just punching bags. Like the closest to that is Masuzu, but she even, she's a primer boss. She's supposed to kind of
she's supposed to be,
yeah, but even she's kind of got her own personality. But really going through and it's like, here's the crazy arena boss, here's the schmuppy boss, really just kind of getting very creative on all of them, because I think, it's very easy with a brawler to burn the player out and just say, okay, I'm bored of this, not another battle. So it was really critical for the boss battles and for the enemies and just the flow of everything to make it as fun as possible, so that people aren't, getting annoyed. They're actually enjoying it. And that's what we've seen, like both internally with the team and now that people are doing videos and doing reviews, we're seeing people that are taking people down even when they're not in screen lock and just like going up and sweeping them up and trying to do the crazy combos and all that kind of stuff. So it's really satisfying.
Yeah. An old school like Ninja Turtles kind of arcade setup is that's been done. I don't want just go in, hit, run away, dodge their thing, go in and hit, run away, dodge their thing. Like their personalities should shine in their attacks. And
I think, and you can speak whether this was kind of intentional or not, but I like that the brawling is you're hitting a lot and you're getting hit a lot. And it's not to say that you can't play the game perfectly, but it's kind of like there's not an emphasis on that. Like it's not, so, like you said, it's not just running away, do your 2 hits and run away. Like the girls are getting in there and they're just like really taking on everybody by storm, and then they get knocked back and then they get back up, and there's so much personality to it. And I think that sort of flow feels really good, because if you just had like, hey, we're going to take on the city, and then you go through the whole game and you're a halfway decent player and Misako never takes a hit, I think it just like contextually and story-wise would feel weird.
Yeah, well, not only that, people have said, they've said like, oh, it's pretty tough. I was like, because you are used to beat 'em ups that are arcade beat 'em ups. Like this is why there are stores. If I'm playing a Zelda game, I wouldn't go through Zelda and never heal myself and go, whoa, that's a hard game. It's like there are stores. You have an inventory list to have things to replenish your health. If you never needed to use an item, what is the point of an item?
Yeah. And we also balanced the game knowing that it was going to be more of a rough and tumble game. So for example, like if you die, it's always auto-saving your progress. You're never more than booted back 1 screen. You lose a little bit of cash, but
hospital bills.
Hospital bills, of course. And then there's the mechanic of when you're in 2-player where you can save the other player. And basically when they collapse and their little spirit like flies out of them like the little dodgeball angels, you can go and start curb stomping your friend and beat the little angel back into him. And we
had a much weirder idea before that.
I don't remember.
Where it was like first person camera and you had
that's right. Yeah.
It just was like, this is all right, we're doing weird, but this is too weird.
like an old fashioned arcade continue screen, how it would like cut to Hagar trying to blow out the dynamite.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is getting all right, let's just keep it simple.
I totally forgot about that. But yeah, what's nice though is I've noticed when people are playing it, and we're watching people now on streams and reviews, that having that connection between the girls kind of expands to everything. So it's like, it's a 2-player game, but now that I know that if Bannon loses his health, I can run over and stomp on him, it creates this tethering between us. So I'm always keeping one eye on him, and I'm always thinking, oh, okay, there's an apple there. Do you want to get the apple? Or, hey, there's a store we should go stock up. You don't have any items. Look at your health. The story is all about these 2 best friends that are just so close to one another, and they're helping each other through this crazy journey. And so we really wanted to reinforce that in the gameplay and just make it feel like this really tight-knit friendship between the 2 of them.
Honestly, stomping people back to life was like my selling point for having people play 2-player at PAX.
Yeah.
And watching people do that, I was like, people just love that part. It was
Well, River City, and there's a quick cutscene about it. You didn't harp on it too much, but just enough. I think Kyoko asks Misako, like, why is everyone so violent in this town? And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, like, I've heard other towns, people aren't constantly just punching each other in the face on the street. It's like, okay. Yeah, but we do that here. Like, yeah, like the language of violence is just
always kicking and punching each other. And she's like, no. She's like, all right, whatever. And that's the only time we address it. Because so I mean, like, we put little conceits in there. So things that we added later, like Patrick Seitz plays the principal, and he's one of my favorite characters, even though he's just a disembodied voice, because he's basically like, today's school lunch is rice and beans. Don't let those girls escape. And it's just this telling everybody in the school to beat them up. So there's a little bit of conceit there, but yeah, we wanted to play with the idea of like, well, why are they going through in town and fighting 500 people on the way to
know what to do
just to get some answers.
So, and that carried forward from Underground. I wanted to hear more from Bannon about his work on that game, what he learned, what he wanted to do differently with River City Girls, knowing that Underground, geez, what was that? 3 years of development, Bannon?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I honestly almost cried when I saw the amount of stuff I drew. Like afterwards, when we had the actual engine like shootout, like what is the amount of individual animations and like assets? And it was in the like hundreds of thousands, and I was just like, what did I do? Like it was. So this was a weird process for me to learn to let go of that and have other people do it. I did animate some rough stuff so we can get the engine working, but then once Kay and other people came on there, just like Adam's like, you just let them do that. You have to learn to like just direct them to do this. You don't have to do this anymore. And it's like, we don't want you to do this. And I saw Kay animate, like, I don't want to do this either. This guy's phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember early on, because that's the thing is, it's the assistant director mentorship thing that I went through on Sigma Star and Bannon went through on this. It's trying to basically set up another director where now, hey, go fly solo, do your own thing completely by yourself. And so setting up best practices. And it was the same thing. I came in as an animator at WayForward when I was hired long ago. And my first few projects, I remember trying to do everything myself. If you play the X-Men game on GBA, I like touched up every animation. I did most of the level design. I was tweaking the HUD. I was like, trying to do everything. And slowly over time, you're realizing, oh, there's a lot of talented people around. I don't have to do that and that and that. In fact, this guy's better at that. This guy's better at that. So, I was curious how that was going from a game where you're doing 99% of all art and animation to now leaning on other people for it.
I still scratch my itch by, like, I didn't want to waste Kay's time on specific things. Like background, I'll animate that stuff. That stuff is boring. I will do the boring stuff. So that's how I kind of scratch my itch, just to get some animation in there.
You're the kind of boss who's like, I'll do the boring stuff, Bannon.
Yeah.
Good God,
I'm not
boss.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste the time of somebody that it's not me looking down on myself. Somebody way more talented than me, they are going to do the way more, like, this is needed. Like the animation that Kay can pull off in the time that he can pull it off, it's like, I'm not going to waste his time on ocean waves.
Yeah.
And like a puddle. There's no way I'm going to do that.
I was going to say,
a lot of bosses love wasting their employees' time. So that's fantastic of you, Bannon. I hope you, Bannon, your animation is stupendous. It's some of my favorite stuff. I love the kind of life that River City has and the unique look to it. But the work on Underground is definitely not to be diminished. The fact that you worked with such small resolution characters. I know they weren't technically small resolution, but you were working with generally the same look as the original. And
they're the same size as the original.
Oh, it was. So I wasn't wrong. That feels good. And yet you gave them so much energy and so much personality. Like I, on the side, try to draw a sprite here or there, and I can make, a smiley face and a cow, but you made a man vomit, and you're like, that's real vomit. You made real vomit in a video game, Bannon. That's no small feat.
And I think also this was also, it's most of the games WayForward works on are basically a year and change. So this one, the full production was a little bit closer to a year and a half, but the core of when we're actually creating all the content was pretty much 12 months. So we had to get in there and immediately start getting animations going, getting bosses going and stuff. And go back to the animation. I think like it's easier to give up things when you have somebody as ridiculously talented as Kay. And from the first character, the first animations we got from him, aside from his audition, were Masuzu. And I remember Ben and I were just floored because not only were they gorgeous, but he had all of the goofy stuff, like when she is defeated and it's the big anime tears coming out, and when she's flexing and the buttons are stretching, like all those little touches were just there. And working with Kay, it's addicting. You want to give him as much as possible just to see the results, because they're just going to be so much more creative than any standard process.
Yeah, like I said, I would sketch out the moves just to get down this stuff. And then, we had like really rough versions just going off the Hunter stuff. But once Kay got on, I was like, oh, this feels like a game. Like the moment we got his stuff in there, I was just like, oh, like this looks fantastic. And the production just steamrolled from there, because it was like, just seeing his stuff in there was like, oh, we can do so much more that I didn't think we could. And these combos look better. Now we're going to gear these combos according to Kay's animations.
And I would say, like, look for the little things too, like especially on Kyoko, when you're playing as her, watch her face in all the animations. So it's like she does, little cute squeezed eyes, or when she's lifting something heavy, she's got the puffy cheek. Like there's all these cute little like emoticon style, like little mannerisms of her that I think any other animator, myself included, would be just like, well, I'm just going to copy the face or maybe open the mouth to yell. But he just puts so much personality in it. It's crazy.
Yeah, personality is the key word for this game. And I might have already said it, but it's the key word for your co-op. Like you two played a co-op game when you made this game. And Adam, your love of writing dialogue that has personality and coming up with a world that has personality, and Ben, your love of animations that have personality and violence that has personality. Like it's not.
And I think also, like, in terms of the story, that's something that I think I get better at, and also WayForward gets better at game by game. So one of the things that I really wanted to do from the beginning of this is have no scripted sequences in the game. And I think there's literally one, which is the related to the VIP tickets, and it's for a gag that I love from Double Dragon. I think that's the only time in the whole game where you are sprites and you don't get to move because something is going on. Everything else in the game,
but that one needed
to happen. But aside from that one, you are either walking around while the passive VO is going on, so you still have gameplay, or it's a full screen cinematic or portrait style, and you can skip all of those. So it's really critical to me. I never wanted to take the gameplay away from the player and just sit there with like idling sprites, and they're like hammering it and looking away and
sure.
back to the action. So yeah, very critically, very specifically, it's either you are in control of your characters if you're seeing them, or if something comes up to obscure them because it's more full screen storytelling, we're going to let you skip it if you want to.
Mm-hmm. That's really generous storytelling. Like so many game devs I know, they would not want to give that much to the player because they want to be in control of what the player's experience is.
Even the title screen, even the attract mode, like right from when it comes up in the animation, you can skip that too.
Yeah, I mean, this genre came from an arcade experience.
Yeah.
Like beat 'em ups are traditionally an arcade. It's like if you want to watch a story, if you want to get involved and in depth with what's happening, or if you want that arcade experience, just skip it. Just get to beating people up.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Was the scene, and I think the second episode of Ranma One Half by Rumiko Takahashi, where Akane goes to school and beats up everybody, it's like one of the best scenes of all time. But I didn't ask you this before the show, but I just had to guess that had some influence on the energy you wanted to put into this game.
I have never seen a single episode of Ranma.
What?
Yep.
What a wild coincidence then, because
it's similar to like I only recently discovered Sailor Moon, like maybe 3 years ago.
Oh, the girls with the hair?
Yeah. I was watching the first few seasons of it, and it felt so like a WayForward thing, and even more specifically, like we worked with your friend Lindsay Collins on Catgirl, and there's just, it feels like it's of that DNA, but no, it was
really?
never.
So there was no influence there. How about Project A-ko, one of my favorite films growing up?
Nope.
Never? Wow.
I have seen stills in magazines when I was a kid of this stuff, never seen a ramen or a Sailor. What was it? Sailor
Noom.
I mean, I definitely like in terms of the style of the game and their personality. Dirty Pair is great. Bubblegum Crisis, like some of those. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the jokiness, I think most of my writing is like it's like 50% uncle jokes and dad jokes. It's just like really hammy stuff, which is probably why I got to write on Teen Titans Go, because that's all that show is just uncle joke after uncle joke. So I think it's fun. It's fun to have just the most groaning, cheesy lines, but then, like you said, try and maintain an actual kind of personality underneath it at the same time.
Yeah, and it's so humbling, I guess. Like there's so many games that I think are desperate for you to be impressed with them and to think that they're cool and they're showing off. And of course, the characters in your game are the kind of people I would want to be. I would love to be able to do the stuff that they can do, but at the same time, they're
random people on the streets.
I mean, you can do that.
This guy just made a Vitamin Connection game.
Oh, is James there? Oh, hey, James. Good to see you.
Go buy River City Girls. I'm in the game as a shopper.
He's a shopkeeper.
That's right. Yeah, and Tom Hewlett, right? As you guys run the video game shop, which makes
sense. Right. Yeah, good to see you, man. All right.
Yeah, good to see you, James.
I'm gonna let you sneak out.
I was gonna eventually. I hope this hour is just zinging by. Talk about how many things you seem to put in the game for you. Like you put James and Tom in there as shopkeepers. Bannon is a shopkeeper, I think. At least there's someone named Bannon in there.
I'm a very tired shopkeeper at the very beginning.
And the principal is Principal Rudis, isn't it?
The teacher.
The teacher.
That's all, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The manga scenes, the comic scenes had to be done so much earlier than everything else. So I just named him that before we realized that there was actually going to be another Mr. Rudis in the shop.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah, we do voices in the game also. So
yeah, before the show, I was asking you if you had ever seen Iron Mike Sharp wrestle. This is yet another amazing moment where I found out that something I was sure was an influence had no influence at all, because you do these schoolboy. No.
Yeah, the schoolboy,
the cop.
The cop. And then the cyborg.
Yeah.
Can you do them for us? Can you just put yourself?
We all did the recording at the same time, and one of the other employees here, Chris Williams, he did the thug, and he also did who did he do? What's the other one I'm thinking? Tiger Man, or were you Tiger Man?
No, he's Tiger Man.
Tiger Man and the thug.
I'm Trash and the Yakuza and somebody else.
Yeah.
But yes,
the Arnold one was my favorite because I was in tears doing that. Because I was screaming into the mic for that. Like
you were crying because you were screaming so loud?
Yeah, just like and I had to like act out everything.
I hope it's not a spoiler. I was very cautious in writing the review. Spoilers really, Bannon, I know you hate spoilers more than most things.
Hate them.
You do. You hate. So I'm always afraid to spoil something when we're communicating.
The character, if you've played, I forgot his name, but if you played Double Dragon 2, he's in that game.
Yeah,
so it's basically our version of that. But it's all the little touches.
Real quick, is like Technos is like go to town.
Yes.
Like we were able to pretty much whatever. Yeah. Like even Bolov.
Yeah,
Combat Tribe.
Bolova.
Right, from Double Dragon 2.
He's a little skinnier, but that is from Combat Tribes.
Yeah. And
Combat Tribes. I was blanking. That's the masked guy who, when he's just a guy with a mask, and you're like, okay, I'll fight this guy. And then when he dies, if I remember correctly, then
that's Burnov.
That's Burnov. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was going to say on the Arnold thing, we also just had this kind of open atmosphere where everybody in the team was just throwing in ideas. And so Joel, our lead VFX guy, whenever the enemies get stunned, they have the little stars floating around their head. But when the Arnold cyborg guy gets stunned, it's little zeros and ones that are floating above his head.
I was wondering if I was dreaming that. I played a game like at 2 a.m. because I other stuff I have to do during the day. So yeah, that was real. And it also gave me the feel of Revenge of Shinobi, where they just put like Batman and Spider-Man,
Batman, Spider-Man.
and Terminator, and hope they wouldn't get sued out of it. So was there any fear with the Terminator movie coming out? Did you guys think like, oh no, Arnold's going to play this, lawsuit's coming?
That is such an exaggerated version of it that it's and it's like
you're pretty safe.
Yeah, that is that in that Reagan era of like those kind of characters where it's like it's all based on Stallone. Like Contra is just Stallone and Arnold. But like
I know they totally got away with it, Konami.
Well, and a lot of that, some of the more obscure stuff. So I can't wait. There's a guy on YouTube just a few days ago who did a deep dive on the characters just from the trailers, and he's like showing off, oh, here's Yoko from this Famicom game, and here's this other one from. So I'm hoping he does a continued one now that the game is out, because there's, I believe, over 50 like speaking roles in the game, and most of them are from Kunio Kun River City lore. But what was really cool is working with Arc System Works. They bought the brand about 5 or 6 years ago, I believe. They bought Double Dragon and Kunio-kun, which is River City, but they got all these other weird Technos brands with it. And so a lot of the most obscure stuff, like having Trash there, having Martha and Bulova from Combat Tribes, having Waver, who's this little like bear-coated girl who throws
so obscure
giant dies around. Came from Arc. They're like, hey, can you put this character in? Can you put this character in? And then a lot of the music too. We should talk about how amazing Megan did on all that stuff. But some of her tracks were just like, hey, can you remake this one, this one, this one? And they would give us the most obscure tracks. And she would be like, all right, and kind of crack her knuckles and come up with like a new interpretation
Megan
of
blows
it.
my mind. How fast.
Who, I don't know if I know Megan. Is that Chip?
Yeah, so Chipsel did, Neve did the boss songs. Dale North, who you used to work with.
Oh, sure.
If you go into the arcade, all of the fake arcade songs were by him. And then Christina V sang the intro. Nathan Sharp, who goes by Nate Wants to Battle, did the intro and outro song, and he sings the end credit song. But most of the tracks, like almost 50 tracks in the game, were by this amazing musician named Megan McDuffie.
Oh,
and
right.
She did not only the compositions, but as you're playing through the game and you're hearing random just vocal songs, that's all her as well. And
she's
really,
noise, right?
It was something that I really wanted in I remember it was playing one of the Wario Land games on Game Boy Color, and you go to the beach stage, and then suddenly it's just this like beautiful full vocal song. And I'm like, why does this exist? It's not even a boss battle. It's not in the credits. It's just this beautiful song, just low key in the background.
Well, that's why I put the little boombox.
Yeah, exactly. So what we wanted to do on this is just have low key just walking through and be like, hey, I think someone's singing, and listen to it. And it's just so charming and catchy. But
all the reviews mention the music.
Yeah, she did something like around 50 tracks, and I think something like 6 or 7 full vocal songs are all by Megan, and they're just phenomenal.
And of course, that one boss fight.
Yeah,
right. She's also noise.
People see it.
Yeah.
Music themed boss fight. Very fun. Not as hard as the other ones, and that was actually a relief for me after the crushing defeats I'd suffered against a Bobo. I was thinking of growing in a Bobo mustache. I don't know what you guys think of that.
I think that's the best idea.
I could pull it. I'll send you a picture in a little bit.
Now, if you don't, I'm going to be disappointed in you.
Well, yeah, I aim to disappoint. So we'll see what happens. So Arc showed some passion with this. I know Bannon worked with Arc a little bit on Underground, and my understanding with Underground, they were a lot more hands off. With this one, it sounds like all of you were making this unique to you, expressing a lot of your individual personalities, but all in the service of your passion of these characters that were owned by Technos. And Arc didn't create any of those characters either, so it's not like make our characters right. They loved them too.
They might have created a few of them because they've done the last like 5 years of games. So all the 3DS games and the PS4 game Melee and stuff. So, but basically our producer over there is like the brand protector. So he knows everything. And I think like their game that's coming out now on PS4 has something like 180 playable characters because this world is just massive with like all these characters. So it was really fun to work with them, and do deep dives on like, hey, who should we feature, and giving them all a facelift, giving them all kind of like, a updated visual. And that was all. We should give a shout out to Priscilla Hamby. All of the character designs and most of the illustrations you see in the game are all by this amazing artist. She goes by Sue Lala on Twitter, and she has a web comic called Devil's Candy. But she did really phenomenal work. And so
my one note was make them cosplayable.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So, but working with ARC, it was great because they were really good with the lore stuff and kind of telling us, like, they would say, oh, actually, you need to change this line because Kyoko goes to a different school and this character is not dating this character. So they were really good with that stuff. But
I've been studying River City for like 7 years, and his lore, I was like,
oh yeah,
all right. Never mind. Like, deep dive.
Yeah, I just assumed that all came from you, Bannon, because you've in the past explained to me a lot of.
There's some of it, but then he was like, no, it's this. I'm like,
well, because ultimately the brand Kunio-kun has had maybe a dozen-ish games in the US, but it's had over 50 games in Japan. So
50?
Over,
like, are we 50?
If I think we're something like that. We might be either number 50 or 51 or 52, somewhere around there. But so they were really good with the lore. But the other thing is, I mean, these are the guys that do Blaze Blue, that do Guilty Gear, that do Dragon Ball FighterZ, the best fighter game developers in the world, probably. And so they were great just playing our game, giving us feedback, giving us, we would play with hit stops and timing on stuff. And Bannon would go back and forth with like the fighting experts on their end. And so, yeah, I mean, even though WayForward, developed the game in terms of like putting in all the code and all the artwork into the game, their feedback and advice was really, really fantastic on this game to make it as good as possible.
I was happy fast they liked it though.
Yeah.
I was so like, I was so worried that the Dragon Ball Fighters guys would just be like, this is garbage.
Right.
Take it back.
Well, I like it. I like those Dragon Ball Fighters games. I like Guilty Gear. I like Blaze Blue. Yeah. Terrible for that. But I want a 2D fighting game again. And you guys made one almost, like you did. It's technically one. If you took all the frames of animation in your game amongst the 12 standard enemies, and then there's 5 or 6, 7 bosses. There might be a couple secret bosses. I don't know. So there's a lot of animation frames in there. I'm betting.
Little behind the scenes bookmark there. That is how we did test some of the moves, was in Mugen, to see if these would
really
work. Yes. So that is how we try to keep it as tight as possible. Test it in Mugen, go, this works. If it was a fighting game, make sure it works and beat them up. So that was mainly K. K can not only animate, but he can program. And he showed me, I was like, oh, these can work in a fighting game. So that is the sensibility. But the sensibility behind it, like Adam was talking about earlier, is what I wanted to hit was Big Brother, Little Brother. Big Brother can do these combos and juggles and like chains and like cancels and stuff like that and do parries. Little Brother could just hit quick attack, maybe a heavy attack. They're still going to have a blast.
Yeah.
They won't know the difference. It's like a blissful ignorance of I can just hit this button. They're going to have a blast.
Yeah, my kids right now are my son is 9 and my daughter is 6. And they love playing this game. They probably won't be able to beat the bosses, but the individual scenes, and because of the respawns and stuff, and because it's very, pretty easy going, they can kind of fumble their way through. Yep. But yeah,
little brothers.
That's wonderful.
But you were going to say as far as fighters. I mean, so like I will say 2 things. One, regardless of River City stuff, some of the things that WayForward is pitching right now does include actual fighters and hopefully some really, really amazing concepts and brands. So I hope some of those get the green light. Fingers crossed, you guys will see some cool stuff from us in 2020 and 2021. But then also, because we went out on such a stylistic limb on this game as far as the River City brand. This is one of the first games that doesn't have those NES style sprites, that redesigned all the characters, that redesigned the look of everything, and ARC just embraced us completely along the way. So, obviously we're looking at the reception of it, and which has been great so far in the sales and everything. But I mean, I would love to see us just keep working with this brand and just keep working with ARC on, developing these characters and taking them into all different kinds of games and experiences and everything.
Whoa.
Yeah, when Adam pitched me this, at first I was very against the new, bigger sprites and animations. And then I saw it, I was like, No, he was right.
Well, that's yeah. You are a very passionate man, Bannon. You're a very passionate man, and
But
and
it is since like '89 that they have used these sprites.
Yep.
It's good to
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
and they're great sprites. They're iconic, like
Oh yeah.
almost Mega Man 8-bit level iconic sprites,
Yes.
in my opinion. But what you've done with this game is capture their essence and simplicity, but give them the evolution that they deserved all this long.
Yeah, still paying homage to it. Like there is stone hands and dragon feet in there,
And
but
the
it's
little-
our version.
And the little tutorial Cuneo, like every time you
He
get
comes up, and he's in the arcade. I noticed it's he's still there, and he's still fit.
He's not pointing at something.
he's ordering.
Oh, that's right.
We're
No,
like,
I haven't
hijacked-
found any
we hijacked
butts
it.
so
And then you-
far. That's one thing I wasn't sure. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to do the butts exactly, the classic River City sauna butts.
Mm.
no, well, no, it was like,
If we can leave that for people to dig into, because there are quite a few secrets. There's 25 statues to break. That might do something. Beating the game might do something. There might be cats hidden in the game, I've heard. There may or may not be cats.
Yeah, you're talking about some other game right now.
You're talking nonsense. What's the
We
matter?
really only have 4 more minutes. I have so much other stuff to talk about. So with 2D art, you've talked about it at length, but it's something that comes up a lot in terms of people understanding why video games are made the way they're made. The King of Fighters games, 2D for a long time. King of Fighters, I think it was 13, some of the best art I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden it just went polygon based. And so I always ask people, why do you think they switched to that? Is it just too expensive to make a 2D game? You guys made a 2D game that, to me, it's like cute Third Strike. Is what you've got. You've got like cute Makoto and a Ibuki from Third Strike. And Third Strike is like the pinnacle. So you've chibied it, you've shrunk it, which I'm sure made it a little bit easier than those full-size characters. But the level of expressiveness and just general quality is there. You did it in a year. Can't other people do it? Why are people not making games like this more often?
I mean, I think it's a stylistic thing mostly. I will say that generally, so WayForward does a lot of different types of games. We do full 3D games. We do games that are 2D HD, so it's like high-res style like Shantae, and then we'll do pixel games. Usually, pixel animation is by far the cheapest and the fastest to produce. And then, it was almost doubly so on this because when I said before we went stylistically with this approach where it's all flat colors and flat shades and stuff, that was partly for the visuals and partly because it's a lot faster to animate, because if you don't have to do all the little dithering and all the little edges, you're just swashing in colors. You're basically just drawing with shapes. So this, even for pixel art, this style of animation is probably amongst the quickest that WayForward's ever done, like, the time it takes to do each individual animation.
So does it have to do with just, so you're saying that and it sounds humble to me, but then I'm remembering, oh, wait a minute. They hired Paul Robertson on Hey Ice King, Why Did You Steal Our Garbage? I think it's called the Adventure Time game that you and James, I think, worked on. Did you work on that one, Adam?
No.
Or is that just James? Yeah. So you've worked with Paul Robertson, like one of the greatest 2D animators going. You're working with Bannon Rudis, who I think is one of my favorite animators in terms of his imagination, his expression, and his attention to detail, his concern with quality. Bannon is his own worst.
Oh, I'm blushing, John.
Bannon, you are a stickler. And you are a master critic. You can watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and find mistakes that I would have never noticed in that film and tell me about them for some length of time. Yeah, I don't forget that stuff. But you're hardest on yourself. Like, you are not satisfied with your own work a lot of the time. You push yourself really hard, which is why I think part of why this game turned out so well.
Why Kay and I got along so well and worked together, because he would do the animations. He's like, I want to fix this. I want to fix this. Going down a path I've gone down so many times.
He's really self-critical. And also, just before we run out of time, there's one major, there's a couple of people. James Gintu is our amazing lead programmer, and we had a great team with him. David and Glenn, our producers, were amazing. But as far as like the personality stuff, we didn't talk about Christina V. She's the voice.
Of course.
She's the voice of Kabako. She did all the casting and all the VO directing in this game. So if you love the way that Misako sounds or Kyoko, or you think that the jokes really land because of the delivery, so much of that was Christina's touch on this game. And I've been working with her for about 4 or 5 years now, and she just makes every game just like absolute top quality in terms of VO stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. She, I think, did she work on Skullgirls too? What did I think that she did?
Yeah, she did the VO casting and direction on that one too.
Yeah, I thought she did too. So you've got, you, Adam, I don't want to call you old, but you're an experienced, seasoned pro. You've got Bannon, who is new to WayForward, been working on games for a while, but doesn't have as many games under his belt, still so much passion. You have developers and artists who had never worked on a game before. You have the likes of Christina V, who is becoming, from what I can tell, she does anime work too. She's one of the most prolific. Such a combination. You got them all together to create this thing. I'll be very mad if it's the last time he did. You did it.
That doesn't even include the people that Adam reached out to do additional voices.
Oh yeah. Because we've also got Game Grumps, Aaron and Danny. We've got
are they in there?
Jacksepticeye. We've got Eric Iishi. We've got ProZD. There are a lot of friends that I've worked with on either recent games at WayForward or side projects, like I did the VO casting and direction on Monster Prom. There's so many voices in this game. Like I said, it's over 50 speaking roles. It was just a great opportunity to just bring in a lot of our friends and just have them contribute a few lines and just have fun.
Which is part of Adam's thing about, like, I did an interview over at PAX and I kind of quoted you, just beat him over the head with presentation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes this game feel like it's like a $10 million game because it's like, how did we get all these people? How did we put this much I don't know, just like production value into this thing?
Well, to me, that's if we WayForward as a signature, it's that you and Austin Ivan Smith have talked about this too. He did the DuckTales remastered. The amount of passion you'll put into a project that other developers would probably just be like, it's a licensed game, just get it out. It's not ours. We're not going to be able to own it. And it could be a license as big as DuckTales or Transformers or Batman, or it could be something as obscure as Misako and Kyoko. You put your all into it, which then makes me mad that, one, people don't know about the artists at WayForward. They know the brand and they know your mascots, but they don't know that you guys and gals are working so hard on it and that it's an expression of who you are. And two, I'm like, and now ARC, God bless them, they're just going to run with River City Girls and give it to Ubisoft or Insomniac or something. And then WayForward doesn't get to keep any of this stuff they made. Like, for me, River City Girls is maybe the most WayForward game. You've put yourselves into it to such an intense degree, it literally and figuratively, like your shopkeepers in the game too. Yeah. Somebody coming in is shaking.
Wait, did you mention this guy?
What?
Whoa! Hey, Austin.
What's going on in here?
I was just yelling about how much you care about your job.
We were literally just talking about you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's true. Yeah, we're about to wrap up. So I deeply hope that this is not the end of your work with River City Girls. I feel like you have made this just as much yours as it is.
I would say of every publisher I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and especially every when you're working with Japanese publishers where they're like, oh, this is our brand, this is something we've been working on for decades. It's very, there's a lot of like, what are you going to do with the story? And, oh, what are you going to do with the characters? Like, there's a lot of like very kind of thoughtfulness and heavy consideration. ARC is just funny, man. They're just a bunch of rock stars. And I've never, of everybody I met in Japan on recent trips, they just seem like this bizarro alternate version of WayForward. And when we went to visit them, they were like, oh, you guys made Contra, we love you, and we made a Contra. And they were just, it's all of us just fanboying out against each other. So, I mean, they just seem they were so good to work with, and we're already having conversations of what we can do next. And so I think it would be unlikely if you saw another full-on River City Girls game if it wasn't something that WayForward was heavily involved with.
Well, that's great. I want to follow the River City Girls brand as long as I followed the River City Ransom brand. I would love to see just a standalone 2D fighter with these characters, upscale them a little bit, grow their legs out a little so they stretch out and fill the screen, or just another game like this. I could see a turn-based RPG with them. Only the leg.
90% leg.
I would still play it, even under those conditions. Well, thank you so much for taking the time on launch day Hope you're getting lunch. It's probably 1 o'clock your time. You started this right at your lunch, so I hope you go get to eat on lunch day. A lunch day for lunch, and I hope the launch goes well. I'm excited to put this in print. And Nintendo Force will be having its review of River City Girls, written by me. September 22nd, I think, is the cutoff date to buy that issue. If you have not seen Nintendo Force before, a quick plug. It is a print magazine, around 80, 82, 85 pages we put out every other month. And it comes with a double-sided Nintendo-themed poster. This October issue is going to be Bloodstained in Luigi's Mansion 3, so it's perfect for kids. So many posters I've been a part of in one way or another.
We worked on Bloodstained, too. A lot of people don't know that.
Bannon may even draw a comic strip for a future issue. I've asked him.
I know, that was kind of like you, Jonathan, going, hint, hint.
Let me just say some things real quick. So,
sure.
Today is launch day. You can get River City Girls right now on PC, PS4, Xbox One, or Switch in the US. You can get it digitally right now, or you can go to limitedrungames.com. They've got it physically on Switch and PS4. That's one thing, too. The soundtrack, which is amazing. It's maybe my favorite soundtrack I've ever had on anything I've worked on.
It is your bang for your buck on this.
It is crazy. So it's
50 songs
available right now. If you go to iTunes or if you go to Spotify, you can get that right now. You can listen to all of Megan and everybody else's amazing songs. And the last thing is, if you're in Los Angeles this weekend.
That's where we're at.
The food truck.
Yeah, the food truck. So this Sunday in Little Tokyo, Okamoto Kitchen, who is friends of ours, are going to be serving food from River City. So you can get actual Merv burgers, Merv fries, avocado toast, as the millennials like, and all that stuff.
I'm so sorry for that.
They've got a great selection, and they're starting to promote it right now. But if you come this Sunday and you get the Big Merv combo, which is a burger and fries and a boba drink. Merv fries, boba drink. Forgot to brand it. Yeah. You get stickers of our burger. And so these are the stickers. You'll get a Kyoko and a Misako sticker if you come this weekend. Follow Okamoto Kitchen on Twitter, and if you come and you get the combo, you'll get a sticker of our girls.
It's so great. Already expanding the brand and just having fun. Adam, you're so good at knowing how to have fun with your jobs. It's commendable. Most of us are too afraid we're going to just like screw it all up. But you're like, oh yeah, I'll pitch a gem show. Oh yeah, I'll write a book. You wrote a book. You forgot to pitch that.
Oh, yeah.
You wrote Afraid of Everything, which is a great spooky book that's just right for, I would say, 10, 12-year-olds. And you're working on another book. You've got one on Kickstarter. Those Kids You Know, I believe it's called.
Those Kids You Know.
Yeah.
This is the studio mentality. I mean, everybody on the creative side either gets raised up by Matt Bozon or raised up by somebody who was raised up by Matt Bozon, and just our structural, situation here with Matt, our creative director, is he just loves people being crazy and inventive. And I've seen a lot of studios. I worked at freelance before WayForward, where a lot of them are more top-down driven. So even the directors per game are just said, go do this, don't do this. It's all very checklisty. Mm-hmm. It really is just kind of like indie filmmaking here. There's a lot of freedom for everybody on the staff, and the directors are all very giving and willing to let people contribute ideas. And I think that all just comes from the way that Bozon established.
Your sound. I think can you hear me still? Your sound cut out.
Oh, can you hear us now?
I see your lips moving. You talk and I'll try to say what you're saying. He said, oh no. Now he's touching his microphone. They may have been cutting our sound because we've talked too much. They may say you're 10 minutes over your hour.
Can you hear us now?
Well, before we go, I forgot to talk about how much I love the soundtrack. I'm going to give myself 10 seconds. Megan McDuffie soundtrack, so understated, so classy, makes you feel like when you're in the midst of a fight, it's not just yelling at you, time to fight every time. It's like, this is their regular life. They're like having a slow, relaxing social time at the beach, listening to just a sweet jam, beating each other to death with a giant tuna. It is such a mismatch. The juxtaposition brings out the strengths of both the wild action and the soothing, relaxing, fun music. And of course, there's 50 tracks, so it ranges the gambit. This is the only way, you guys are so good at talking. They had to cut your mics, so they would let me yell about the soundtrack for a little while. I guess we should close it up, though, because I really, honest to God, can't hear you at all. Can you say anything? Can you just try one more time? Nope, you laughed.
hello.
You tried. I saw your mouth move. Thanks so much, Adam and Bannon. And hopefully it's not the last time we talk. I'm going to beg you to come back and talk to me next time you have a project out. And hopefully I'll have the venue to do so. So far, so good. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Take care.